All right. Hello and welcome again to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today we have a special guest, former Assemblywoman Nicole Parra, joining us today, talking to us about her run for Congress in 2 years. Nicole, how's it going? Thanks for joining the program.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's exciting to talk about another campaign and to be here on your show.
Yeah. Can you kind of, I remember, back in 2003, I had the opportunity to kind of work on the speaker's floor unit for Herb Wesson back in the day. And I remember you sat a couple rows right in front of me there on the assembly floor. Can we kind of reminisce for a moment, kind of back to your assembly days and kind of talk about your district and, you're coming into politics?
Right. So, I was, 2002, I was elected to the California State Assembly. I was about 31 years old. I was the first Latina ever to be elected in the Southern San Joaquin Valley. And I won my first race, you may remember, and Speaker Herb Wesson clearly remembers I won by less than 150 votes.
Wow.
And so I came in and I immediately hit the ground running with, chairing the Veterans Affairs Committee and working with local veterans and veterans statewide on important legislation. And then I chaired the Joint and Legislative Audit Committee. And at that time, it was right when the state received some of the HAVA funds, the Help American Vote Act, from the federal government. And we had really to look at, we had an audit of how the Secretary of State was auditing or using the federal funds. And then I was the chair of the Agriculture Committee my last 2 years, which was amazing because I learned so much up and down the state from farmers, farm workers. And one of the bills one of the items I was most proud of is when we had the big E. coli outbreak. I'm not sure if you remember, it was in 2006. And I was able to hop in my car and drive to Paisina and look to see, and talking to people on the ground, how it started. And, that's one of the things I really prided myself early on is, really, you got to get into the area or go and meet with the people and get outside of Sacramento. Right. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of interest in what we could do, especially regarding E. coli. Should we fence all the ag areas in Monterey County? Should we, implement all these rules and regulations versus, well, you know what, let's just go see how this happened. Let's bring people together. And so that's, how I conducted myself in Sacramento. I was a part of the Cordial Caucus. I'm not sure if you remember with, Tony Strickland and Democrats and Republicans, Bonnie Garcia, Cindy Montañez, and then Fiona Moss started the Cordial Caucus. And it really was bringing Republican and Democratic legislators and staffers together into finding a common interest and common ground. And that really helped me forge those strong relationships and especially kind of promoting what we already have done for years in the Central Valley. We're very, the Central Valley, we work across party lines. People cross party lines to elect you. I have been elected by a lot of Republicans, endorsed by Republicans. And that's why, my race for Congress, I've already secured Republican and Democrat support, which is, I think, a true mark of someone who is truly bipartisan and wants to get things done.
Yeah, it's the Central Valley is interesting dynamics. As you can say, it's kind of a purple area. People cross party lines. I guess, as a representative, I guess, how do you stay true to your district and make sure that you're always representing, I guess, the people from your area instead of, I guess, the politics of whatever party you're from?
Good question. And so one of the things that, I'm a little bit different than a lot of folks is that I have lived in the Central Valley in all four of the counties that the CD21 encompasses and that I represented in the assembly. So I was born and raised in Kern County. And then when I was working for Congressman Dooley, the congressman who represented the area, I worked in Tulare and lived in Tulare County for a few years. Before I was running for the assembly, after my time in DC, I moved to Hanford in Kings County, and I lived there for over 6 years. And then after the assembly, when I came back and worked for Governor Schwarzenegger, I lived in Fresno County for about 3 years. So for me, what separates me from other folks and what helps me be a better member or a better candidate in this case is that when each county has a different culture, has a different type of, issues that are important. In Tulare County, I worked many years in helping with water quality issues, right? In the whole valley, I helped author a bill on the San Joaquin Valley Partnership, leveraging government and private sector resources. And, up in Fresno County, I was participated in a lot of economic development and veterans issues. And so because of that, and because of I've served over 30 years in different volunteer on different nonprofit boards, because of that, I have a good understanding of the people and the issues. So when I was in Sacramento, you'll remember I was kicked out of the Capitol because of my position on trying to get a water bond voted on. And at the time, I was told that if, I was working with Republicans and Democrats, if we were able to get a package together, it would be voted on. And that didn't hold true to some people in the leadership. And so because of that, I said, no, this issue of water and funding for water quality projects and storage projects is important. And so I also was asked to support the budget at the time, and they needed all the votes, and I still had some questions. And at the end of the day, I was kicked out of the Capitol for fighting for the issue and for the Central Valley. And, throughout my career, it's always been, I feel like sometimes, I've been asked to sit down. Nicole, water bond's not the right time. You need to sit down. Nicole, you're too young to run for office. Why don't you wait? Why don't you see, until your time? And so I never sit down. I never wait. And I think that comes from being born and raised in a place that we have had to fight for resources. We've had to, fight for the survival issues, whether it's housing, water quality, and we've had to make do with what we have. But you know what? At the end of the day, we feed the world, the Central Valley. We provide the energy resources in Kern County. And so we need legislators and we need advocates who can sit at the table and have a good understanding of the issues, know all of the seriousness, and have a strong record of public service, volunteerism, and be able to articulate the issues that are important and get results. And that's me. That's what I've done all of my professional life. And so it's exciting to be able to bring it full circle, coming back as a candidate for Congress, is working 30 years ago for the district for Congressman Dooley. And so it's exciting.
What's that like? Can you kind of take us through kind of like the courage or you have to stand up to leadership to tell them, no, you're not going to do that? Because you see it time and time again, members fold and they face consequences in reelection. We've seen a lot of turnover here, recalls recently with members who voted votes that they came back to haunt them. So I guess, how are you able to stand up to leadership, and kind of, I guess, why don't you see that more often?
For me, I think you have to have, I will be okay. I was fortunate to go and graduate, public schools, went to UC Berkeley. I have my law degree. And so I always know that I will be okay. So many people are so concerned about keeping their job, or they need to be able to, they want to run for higher office. For me, I never thought I was going to be an elected official. I really enjoyed the staff work for the congressman. And I thought, perhaps one day I would be a chief of staff to a legislator in Sacramento. I love public service. I like casework. I like rolling up my sleeves and getting things done. So being an elected official and keeping that job, never been a priority for me. For me, it was, if I go back to the district and they choose not to reelect me, that must be then I'm not doing a good job. But I've never lost a race. I've always been reelected. And so because people believe in me, when I say, you know what, if I get kicked out of the Capitol, I'm okay. I'll put up a cardboard table, put it out there, sit in front of the Capitol and have office hours outside. On this campaign trail, I'm going to have, an office in the back of my SUV, drive up and down the valley and talk to people about issues. And I'd be honored if elected, again, being the first woman, the first Latina north of LA County to be elected to Congress. And I will fight for the issues and the people of the Valley in DC. But again, I don't need to be an elected to validate who I am. Not important. As long as I'm of service and helping people in the Valley, that is my goal and what I want to do. So when leadership from other places of the state and they try to corner me or ask me to sit down or ask me to wait or not be too vocal or don't bring up those issues, no, that's not me. The people in the district need that voice. I will respect the leadership. I will respect them. But at the end of the day, whether I'm elected or not, they're going to hear and see me right in front of them.
There seems to be kind of like a history of legislators from the Central Valley kind of being a tough and standing up to leadership for their districts. Back in the day, you had the Gang of Five, you had Gary Condit and those folks trying to take out Speaker Brown. Most recently, we had an example of Chairman Gray losing a chairmanship over a water bond vote. Right. Kind of what is it about the Central Valley that is kind of, allows them or kind of have this attitude where they're kind of able to stand up and kind of buck the system a bit?
You know what? It's a couple things. It's mostly the leadership in politics. They come from areas like urban areas, right? So Los Angeles or San Francisco, and they don't have the same issues and the understanding of what it's like to represent Republicans and Democrats. For instance, they really come from safe seats. So if you think about it, if you come from a 70% Democratic district, you not necessarily understand the issues or the needs or perhaps of how some of the laws are implemented or policies. When there's increase in taxes or there's, when there's no money to fund, increased storage, water capabilities in the district, or, it takes us to explain to people in urban areas, that's going to impact, $1 billion being spent on electric vehicles in the governor's budget, right? So if I were in Sacramento right now, I'd say $1 billion, the state has spent over $7 billion to get EVs on the road. And most of the money and the rebates have gone to people who live in Marin County or the coastal communities. Now, an EV in the Central Valley, most people buy used cars, or we need trucks. Our farmers, our farm workers are in vans or in trucks, right? And so we have a lot of renters. We don't have the supercharging stations where we can put in the home. So that's like a perfect example of saying, okay, here's a policy that is being supported and endorsed by, people who don't live in the Central Valley. This is how a mandate or money being spent on, on this funding, $1 billion to get more EVs on the road. When we need people, when we have problems such as clean water, we need to get, more affordable housing. We need to help with childcare, all of the COVID-19 impacts, right? Even before COVID-19, there was two Californias, the Central Valley in different rural areas of the state, and the urban areas, the coastal areas, the coastal elite, I will call them. So why do the Central Valley folks always find themselves in trouble? Is because we have to continuously remind people outside who live in urban areas. I don't care how they grew up. It's being able to talk to them about how policies and resources are being spent and not helping those in most need in the Valley. And so it's a fight. And it's a challenge, but I'm so proud of Assemblymember Gray or Rudy Salas or, back in the day, Assemblymember, Juana Rambula. And because it's like I said, it's a different place. And so we will keep fighting until our last breath and fight for the Valley.
So, you've, I guess, announced for Congress a good 2 years here early. What do you think the district's going to look like, I guess, when the election's nearing, and kind of where do you see your entryway into kind of taking this seat?
Yeah, great question. So, with redistricting, the commission and some of the delays with the census information, we won't really know what the district looks like until probably a year from now. but I feel very comfortable. And so two-part is I started the campaign early. And actually, I started just 30 days before everyone else started announcing they were running in 2022. I mean, Kevin McCarthy has opponents, Devin Nunes. So for me, people, again, you're starting too early. You should have waited. And again, I said, nope. I know how hard this is going to be. I know how large the district is. I want to do this in the right way, raise the money. I've secured so many wonderful local endorsements, including a couple statewide endorsements. So proud that the Treasurer Fiona Ma has endorsed me and Senator Bradford has endorsed my candidacy, in addition to supervisors and local electeds in the Central Valley. And so I really, the lines don't matter that much to me because like I said, have lived in all 4 counties. And so if I lose Fresno County or gain Tulare and so forth, I have a good bipartisan record, good bipartisan support. I'm going to raise the money that I need to raise. And this is probably, to be honest with you, my 15th campaign. So I know what it takes to walk precincts. When I'm walking, when COVID-19, I'm able to walk. I'll start walking 2 precincts a day. I'm going to move into parks and have office hours in between walking, calling people, really moving. It's bigger than me running for Congress. You're going to see this is going to be a movement. We're going to bring the 4 counties. We're going to bring elected officials and people already reaching out and saying, we're so excited. We're so excited to see you running for Congress, from Valadeo and Cox flip-flopping. Cox isn't even from the Valley. David stays in his own lane in Hanford. People want new leadership. They want someone who has bipartisan support, and they want someone who has a record of getting things done.
Yeah, it's kind of been an interesting, 4 years or 6 years there in the Valley, the back and forth between Valadeo and Cox, and now back to Valadeo.
Yeah.
And then the craziness going on in Washington itself.
Right.
How could you, provide stability and kind of recreate that district and hold it there for a long time to provide better leadership, for your district? Because by this back and forth, they're not being served properly.
No, they're not. And that's another big reason why I decided to do this is you said it right. The people in the Valley are not being served. And so how I feel is again, 30 years of record, lived in all the counties, understand the issues. I know how to get things done. I know how to leverage resources. I'm not afraid to back down. In Washington, D.C., I'm going to, be at the table. I know what to ask for. I know what the needs are, but I'm also know how to build, build strong relationships throughout the Valley. And I'm very excited about, working on new issues, especially when it comes to the environment. I have a first row seat in the energy field to be able to look at the great work a lot of the oil and energy companies are doing with carbon sequestration. Also, all of the good work the environmentalists are doing on biosequestration, looking at the regenerative processes of cleaning, making sure our soil, and where again would that make the biggest impact if we can start working to sequester the carbon in the world in the Valley, right? So those are the type of innovative and things that I also want to work on and be a leader on, in addition to making sure the quality of life issues and the issues that impact our families, our children, our farm workers, our veterans are taken care of. So if I am elected or when I'm elected, I will definitely be able to keep some stability to the seat, provide leadership, and bring everyone to the table, but be that voice in DC.
It's interesting, you're talking about your experience back in the, the early 2000s on the agricultural committee and dealing with water issues. And here we are 20 some years later dealing with the same issues. I guess,
yes.
Is it possible to solve the Valley's water issues, or is this always going to be something evolving that's always going to be a need?
No, I really believe we can. I read in the governor's budget, there's money there, the State Water Resources Board. But, I've also had the opportunity to meet with some folks in the private sector who have some very interesting and good technologies regarding water quality and using those resources in a better way. And so, but, the frustration with people is, we're paying so much for water, we pay more for electricity, And we're the working people. We're the essential workers of the state. And so I think that to answer your question, yes, I really do believe that with the right leadership and the right person, we can begin to solve in a innovative way with all the new technologies to be able to solve some. No one should be living in Porterville again, having to boil water, right? People, in Alpaw, we have 2 water wells that supply, water for 800 people. When, 10 years ago, we were talking about, the Central Valley being the Appalachia of the West. We have the resources. We just need the leadership. That's what's been lacking the last 10 years is the real leadership at the federal level between Valadao and Cox to really work on these issues that are important to working people, right? And so, yes, I do believe strongly that we can get to, working on these issues that affect water quality, the environment, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, healthcare, education, and childcare. We can get a better grasp. And I look forward to working with the state legislators, the federal government, but most importantly, the private sector. They're doing some amazing things. And I know this because I work in the private sector right now.
One thing we've seen in the last few years is, I guess, the growing popularity of some of these new congressional members on social media and kind of really using social media to launch their campaigns and to fundraise. COVID-19 has presented, many challenges for people electing. You kind of mentioned, running, 20 years ago, walking precincts and stuff like that.
Right.
I guess, have you looked at social media and using that as campaigning? And do you see that as a way to kind of vault yourself in your district to kind of help you campaign and move forward?
That's one thing that is new, right? So for me, and so right now, because of COVID-19, we've been using the media with Zooms and so forth. What I look forward to using social media is when I'm out and about. Right now you'll look on social media and you'll see the different folks, making these, 140 character jabs at their opponents and so forth. To me, to be honest, that's not interesting to me. That's, that's just gamemanship. I want to use, and that's why I do have a social media, but you'll see in the last month, I've kind of been evaluating with my team. I really want to use the social media, and if you looked at my website, you'll see, first of all, my website is a very user-friendly, talks about my bio, my background, but I love the part, and I made sure that the website was, please reach out to me if you want me to do a Zoom. What are the issues important to you? And pretty soon that website's going to be, where do you want Nicole to be? And also be able to link where I'm going, my schedule and calendar, really, user-friendly. Social media, the same thing. I want to use it to talk about where I am. So for instance, I'm in Fresno this weekend. I'm here at a farm. This farm has this, and these are the issues. And I want to interview people. Here's the police chief of McFarland. Here's the fire chief. Here's some of the issues. So I'm going to use my campaign and the things for social media for good, to talk about the people, to talk about maybe what resources are needed, to interview other elected officials and what their needs are. Supervisor Richard Valley, he is a leader in Kings County. He's doing some amazing things. He got CVS to get a vaccination site in Hanford, in Kings County. I want to talk to him about that. So when COVID-19, when it's safer and everyone's double vaccinated, I want to use, in addition to my campaign and yes, raising money for me and getting my endorsements, I'm going to use it and be like this, this commentator, this anchor, like do what you're doing. Right. I want to do what you're doing and take it to the Valley and really educate people about the beautiful Central Valley and then within the 4 counties. So that's how I plan to use social media and not just use it to take jabs at my opponents. Not interested.
Take the high road. Good job.
Yes.
One thing you kind of pointed to kind of in your recent work experience is kind of working in the energy field. And, that's something we've just seen here recently with the state of Texas having all sorts of issues during the deep freezes that we've experienced here in California due to fires and, epic heat. And so, this is something that's been a topic of lately is,
Yeah.
Green energy, sustainable energy, Green New Deals. We've had Kathy Reheis-Boyd and WISPON recently to talk a lot about that kind of carbon capture and kind of something that's not really being talked about as a solution to solve global warming. And then, we've had the environmentalists on as well saying, the Green New Deal is possible. It just needs funding. And if we could rip the Band-Aid off and did the funding, we could have it tomorrow. So kind of, you being in the industry and knowing this stuff and on policy level, working that, kind of where do you see, kind of where we are with energy and kind of what is our future?
Right. The future is all the above strategy, right? So we have to be able to look, there's 26 million passenger vehicles that we are, as the energy and oil industry, providing to the state of California. But we also are enabled. Yes, we need to have electricity. We need to look at hydrogen. One of the tours I did in November with the California Foundation for the Economy and the Environment, Jay Hansen's the executive director, we went down and we were talking to folks down by the Salton Sea, right? They have a number of geothermal companies down there looking at ways to take, looking at the Salton Sea and providing the temperature, providing renewable energy. We also went to Eagle Mountain to look at the hydro issues that they're looking at. So for me, when people say we need to, and I don't support, when the governor's talking about banning certain technologies and so forth, we need, again, an all of the above. And you'll see that, look, when we take down Diablo Canyon, that's 3,000 megawatts of clean energy. So where is that going to come from? I was on a call earlier today with the new CEO of CalISO, and it was, he was getting peppered with questions of, what is the state of California looking at Texas? How are we going to be prepared for summer with summer outages? And he was great. He was talking about looking at hydrogen. He was looking at, different projects of how we're going to meet the demand, not only on our grid, right? That's what he's in charge of. But for me, when I'm looking at the Central Valley, how do we ensure that we have renewables, right? That we have the energy that is also affordable to the working people in the Central Valley. And we cannot do this. Who knows what the technology is going to be available in 20 or 30 years, right? So why are we going to ban or to put these deadlines on different technologies now? We need fossil fuels. I don't know about you, but we provide jet fuel until I don't see a future of jets flying with using electricity in the next decade. So we need to be able to provide, and plus we're talking about our energy security. Right now, about 30% of our crude comes from California. We have to import 70%. If we keep continuing to overregulate, and we're going to be importing 100% of our crude to be able to meet the demand that we have with the jet fuel, with the passenger vehicles and so forth, we're going to be 100% dependent on countries that don't have the regulations that we do. So for me, I get hit all the time, we should keep oil in the ground or so forth. I'm about all the above. Let's support. And again, when I talked about carbon sequestration and biosequestration, where else in the state are you going to find the place where the caverns and where we know where we can store this carbon? And California Resources Corporation in Kern County got a great, huge federal grant to be able to look at carbon sequestration. And then when you're looking at in agriculture with the regenerative farming and look at the soil, these are two, again, oil industry and ag industry coming up with the solutions to help with air quality and greenhouse gas emissions. We're in a great place to do this, and I want to be a part of that.
No, fascinating. So we're going to end you here on a hardball question. If there's some sort of treacherous storm, flood, freeze happening in the Central Valley, and you're in DC, Nicole, where are you going? Are you coming back home, or are you going to Cancun?
I am coming back home, rolling up my sleeves, and just like I did with my dad when Lamont flooded, putting out the sandbags, working when the citrus freeze happened in the valley, working with the workers to see what help and working with the different nonprofit agencies. You will not see me flying to Cancun or anywhere else. It's you go home, you help the people, you do the job, and you advocate, and you're an authentic person in and out. And that's really, I'm fortunate. That's what I was taught. And I'm looking forward to this campaign trail and talking to you in the future where I am a year from now.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us. Before you go, can you let us know, you give us your website and your campaign details and how we can follow you on social media?
Nice. So my website is www.parraforcongress.com. So please, from there, you can do all kinds of nice things and endorse or contribute and so forth. My social handles are at Parra and the number 4 Congress. And so you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook. But I will be honest, we are evaluating what's kind of like on hold. So my personal Facebook has a lot of my announcements and projects that I'm working on. But please go to the website. That is up to date. You can get information, my bio, my background. And then in July, the hottest month in the Valley, that's when I'm going to start walking precincts. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to checking in on you again as the campaign comes closer.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.